always, but especially his passion for farmers and business and passion for women-led business. I look forward to your guidance. And also, I would invite esteemed, our esteemed guest, Honorable Minister Suresh Prabhuji, who has been champion in trade and has been representing in G7 and G20 and had played an important role on WTO, in WTO. While saying all this, I'm also proud to share with you that in this inaugural webinar, we have our women. I mean, I'm particularly keen that we explore through the series of these webinars that how farmers across two countries, US and India, share their wisdom and knowledge. And particularly, our women farmers are champions in millets, and they produce the best millets in our country. We look forward that our women's wisdom and US farmers, their insights in technology, both together will produce a nutritious and indigenous food for globally and do business globally. But I would just like to share that our women have never been to high school. Their daughters have become engineers. Their daughters are paravets and they are national athletes. And I'm just saying that this webinar is bringing two sides of the world. One is AI, which is, of course, artificial intelligence and technology, but other is ancient intelligence, and that comes from our women's side. So both the AIs together is setting up this platform where farmers will benefit with the global business. With this, I would welcome everyone, and over to you, Kavita.
And maybe I will jump in and
Yes.
just reciprocate. Chetna, thank you so much for the partnership with Mandeshi Foundation, and thank you to Honorable Minister Gadkari and the other speakers that we have here today. We're very excited at Keiko ISOM to be co-hosting this webinar. Keiko ISOM is the United States' largest agriculture accounting and consulting firm. We work with farmers all over the United States in all types of crops and commodities, helping them to measure their profitability, helping them to be more efficient, helping them to make more money, ultimately so that they can pass the farm on to their children. That's a very important cultural value, that these are multi-generational farms and we want them to stay in the families. Keiko ISOM is increasingly working around the world with farmers, and we're very excited to be working on this webinar series with the Mandeshi Foundation and with all of our speakers. So on behalf of all of the employees and staff and clients of Keiko ISOM, let me thank you all for participating today and say how excited we are to be working with you.
Thank you, Brian. I'm now going to give you a little bit of information about who is participating right now. We had over 500 registrations and more than 135 participants are already logged in. And also many of the participants are attending in groups at 3 separate locations in Maharashtra that Mandeshi has enabled, where they will also be assisted with translations because some of them would prefer to listen in Hindi and Marathi. Also, we will be running a poll alongside the webinar on what all of you would like to discuss at the next, the subsequent webinars that will follow this one. So do take a look at the poll and let us know what are the subjects that you'd like to discuss, so we'd be able to frame an agenda for the next webinar. I now move on to the next section of our webinar. We'll invite the speakers who will actually set the stage for today's discussions. I'm going to first invite Craig Thorne. Craig is the founding partner of DTB Associates. That is a leading agricultural trade consulting firm in the United States. Before founding DTB Associates, Craig spent more than 15 years with the Foreign Agricultural Service at the US Department of Agriculture, serving most recently as Director for Europe, Africa, and the Middle East Division. Craig will sort of give us a sit rep on US-India trade as it stands today, so we understand where we are and what is the road forward. Craig, over to you.
Thank you very much, and many thanks to the organizers. I'm honored to be a participant in this seminar. My job, I think, is to lead off by giving a brief overview of U.S.-India trade in agricultural products, relations in the agricultural sector. India and the United States have a long history of trade in agricultural products. However, I think it's fair to say that given the population of the two countries and the size of their economies, the volume and value of that trade is still quite modest. In 2019, India was the 13th largest market for US agricultural exports, just after Colombia. The total value of those exports was $1.8 billion. Almonds and other nuts accounted for nearly half of that value. Other major exports included ethanol, which Alejandra will talk about in a few minutes, and apples. Looking at trade in the other direction, India was the 14th largest supplier of US agricultural imports. The total value of those imports was $2.8 billion in 2019. And the most valuable items were vegetable saps, which I think includes products such as agar-agar and rice. The World Trade Organization conducted its regular review of Indian trade policy earlier this month. And at that review, the US identified the following barriers to trade in agricultural products. First, tariffs. All Indian tariffs for agricultural products are bound in WTO as a result of the Uruguay negotiations, but most of those bindings are in the 100% to 300% range. Actual applied tariffs are also high for most products. A few tariff lines are bound at lower levels, for example, those covering almonds, apples, and some dairy products, and it is primarily there where US producers have found export opportunities. Number two, sanitary and phytosanitary measures and other non-tariff barriers. Those US exporters that are not blocked by high tariffs often face other obstacles such as certification and grading standards and questionable food safety measures. For example, dairy certification requirements have been a big issue in the bilateral talks that have dragged on for a couple of years now. Also, US apple exporters are required to provide certification that their products are not genetically modified, even though no GMO apples have been commercialized in the US or anywhere else as far as I know. Exporters also complain about a lack of transparency in Indian import regulations. Number three is subsidies. India maintains high support prices for a number of basic products, as well as generous subsidies for inputs such as fertilizer. Those policies have led to overproduction of products such as rice, wheat, and sugar. India's trading partners have alleged that India has used export subsidies on occasion to dispose of surpluses on world markets. Brazil, Australia, and Guatemala are challenging Indian sugar policy in WTO dispute settlement procedures. The US has also considered a broader dispute settlement case that would cover a longer list of products and programs, although the recent increase in US subsidies to the agriculture sector might make it politically difficult for the US to proceed with such a case. However, having said all that, despite the impediments, US exporters continue to see opportunities in the Indian market, and I think the same must be true for Indian exporters to the US. The sheer size of the two economies means that even small improvements in the terms of trade could lead to significant gains. The Trump administration tried to use unilateral leverage, such as the withdrawal of GSP benefits, to win concessions from India. I expect the incoming Biden administration to take a different approach. I look for them to focus mainly on strengthening trade rules and reinvigorating the WTO and other trade agreements, and to use trade policy to achieve foreign policy goals and social policy goals such as sustainability and women's empowerment. But whatever direction Biden administration policy takes, any improvement in U.S.-Indian trade relations will, in my opinion, have to include progress on agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Craig. That's a very nice setting of the ground. We know where we need to go from here. Our next speaker will be Mr. Sudhir Goyal. He's a retired Indian Administrative Services officer, a top bureaucrat in the Maharashtra government who has served across departments, across various sectors, and is also one of the most knowledgeable voices on agriculture, on trade, on technology in agriculture, and on reform in agriculture. Mr. Goyal, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Kavita.
We hope that we will be able to hear from you a little bit more about the opportunities in growing Indo-US agricultural trade and also the challenges therein.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Kavita. I think that Craig has set a tone and he has given a view from the US side. And I would say that US businesses and the farmers. Now let us hear the story from the India side as to what is that our farmers feel about in terms of trade. If we see the international trade, now more than $3.7 trillion is agricultural production, and 54% of the production is exported. So if on average, every country exports more than half of its produce. But in case of India, this production is, share of exports is just 10%. So we have $39 billion of exports and against an agriculture GDP of 397. Now that is the kind of situation in which we are. Now, lo and behold, if you see the GDP of USA is just $164 billion. I was completely shocked to see that we are almost 2.5 times more in terms of agricultural GDP as far as India is concerned compared to USA. Though the value-added products are in trillions of dollars in case of USA. And that is the kind of situation which is there. It means that we are 12% of the world production and USA is only 5%. But let us see what is the situation on the export side. We share only 2% of the world trade in agriculture, while USA shares 9%. So their share in production is 5%, but in exports 9%. And we are 12%, our share is only 2%. Now that is the kind of sad story in which we are. Let us see some of the products. We are number 2 in the world in terms of wheat production, but we are 34th in terms of the export ranking as far as wheat is concerned. And vegetable and fruits, which are 3rd and 2nd rank in the world, we rank in terms of exports only 14th and 23rd. It means that our agricultural production is mainly for domestic consumption, and we are not able to capture the world market, and we are not able to give higher incomes to our farmers, a kind of situation which has happened in many of the other countries where they have done better. So it means that there has to be something needs to be done to change this situation. If we look at the agri-export policy, which was announced by the government of India a few years back, it aims from $30 billion to $60 billion in next couple of years. And that is the kind of situation which we are going to campaign for. And to the other extent, our own Minister of MSME has been advocating that MSME, our share of the exports, of Indian exports is more than 40%. And he wants to take it to more than 50%. And a substantial amount of it is going to be in agri sector. Now, it means that if we connect our farmers to the businesses in USA, there is a situation where we will be able to have a kind of achievements which we want to make it. So I just want to make quickly 4 suggestions. And active discussions of all the myths and fallacies of 2 countries on one side and the farmers, so that they understand with each other the kind of pressure which comes on the respective governments gets reduced. The second is that there should be greater appreciation of the challenges which are being faced by the smallholder farmers, where the average holding is 1 hectare, and in case of USA, it is 176 hectares. And the community-based value chain needs to be introduced, where the farmers cluster and FPOs in India are connected to the businesses in USA. And the fourth and last point, the technology collaboration amongst the farmers of the two countries, and with the help of businesses, probably the starting point could be AgTech. And I would stop here, and I will request that in the future webinars we go further details into sector by sector, commodity by commodity, and try to see that we achieve a kind of export potential and a trade between the two countries, which is much higher than what it is today, which is an abysmally low to 2%. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Goyal. Before we move on to the next speaker, who is going to be speaking to us about something very, very specific and very important, we're going to launch our first poll for the day. So if all of you can take a look at your screens, we'd like you to quickly give us an answer on how important it is, you think, for India and the United States to increase cooperation in the agricultural sector. Very important, somewhat important, not very important, unimportant. Do please poll so that we can understand how many of you would be interested in coming back to us for our next webinar. Moving on, should I give you another 10 seconds to poll, or is that enough? I think that is enough. We'll move on to our next speaker. I invite Alejandra Danielson Castillo to address us next. Alejandra serves as Regional Director for South Asia at the U.S. Grains Council. That is a nonprofit that promotes use of U.S. barley, corn, sorghum, and related products worldwide. In this capacity, she evaluates plans, coordinates, implements, and manages the Council's market development programs in the South Asia region. That, of course, includes India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and Nepal. Alejandra is going to speak to us today about a trade agreement that almost did happen but didn't, and what has been the opportunity cost for US and Indian traders on account of that. Alejandra, over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for hosting this event. Thank you to Keiko Issam and Mandeshi for putting this together. Give me a second and I will share my screen. So I wanted to speak today around what we see as opportunities between the US and India in two particular commodity groups. Coming off of a trade deal that did not materialize, the U.S. Grains Council considers two viable market opportunities that can yield consistent ROI and build upon the U.S.-India trade relationship. The first one is DDGS. The nutrient-rich co-product of dry mill ethanol production, DDGS is a high-energy, protein-rich feed ingredient that is currently not available in the Indian industry. While poultry production is expected to increase in 2021, some challenges remain, namely high cost of production, lack of access to quality, low price protein, energy, products like DDGS and others, and high tariffs on feed ingredients. With a market potential of almost 1 million metric tons, allowing imports of low price feed ingredients would be a way to safeguard the interest of livestock farmers and help double their incomes, allow them to be competitive by reducing their costs and moving them away from relying on inferior feeds, which then lead to nutritional deficiencies and contamination in both food and feed. The second market is ethanol into gasoline. As you can see in the graph, India's total demand for ethanol far outstrips the supply as well as the distillation capacity. In numbers, the deficit is slightly just under 2 billion liters year on year, while the distillation capacity sits at 3.5 billion liters roughly. The industry faces some significant challenges like lack of raw materials, shortage of storage infrastructure, plant partial shutdowns, and regulatory barriers that are prohibitive of imports that could supplement the domestic supply. The supply and demand scenario is more evident when you look at the national blend rate. Set for E10 by 2022 and E20 by 2025, the national blend rate hovers at around 5% year on year. you can see in the graph that while northern states reached 9% or higher blends, a larger portion of states remain at 0 to 5%. I'd like to take this moment to congratulate the Honorable Minister Gadkari, who accompanies us today, for his staunch support in promoting green fuels like ethanol. Minister Gadkari visited our ethanol booth last year at the India Auto Show, where ethanol for fuel was displayed prominently and for the first time as a cleaner, environmentally friendly alternative for the Indian industry. Allowing imports today would inject an immediate growth spurt to the infrastructure projects in the Indian economy. So why wait? Government of India has been working towards increasing ethanol distillation capacity through various measures. But even with large-scale diversion of cane juice to ethanol, it appears improbable to produce the required amount of ethanol to achieve E20 by 2025. Imports via a two-tier procurement program, which I'll talk about in 1 second, can be a possible solution to help India meet its blending mandates. To achieve E10 by 2022 and E20 by 2025, India should consider opening imports of fuel ethanol or raw materials like an intermediate product that can be further processed or distilled to produce fuel-grade ethanol. Imports would only supplement what the domestic industry is unable to supply. A two-tier procurement program would allow the Indian industry to access the global ethanol supply. It would protect domestic sugar producers while providing incentives to refiners and the oil marketing companies to invest in and modernize the ethanol supply chain. In addition, imports of intermediate products like 3 to 4% hydrous ethanol could be further refined by domestic distilleries and keep those plants running year-round. And I want to reiterate and emphasize, the procurement for imported ethanol would only be done after the tendering process for domestic ethanol is completed and there is a shortfall in meeting the blended mandate. Domestically produced ethanol is currently priced higher than the international market. A blend of imported ethanol and Indian ethanol will significantly reduce the average cost of blending nationally. But India is not alone on this endeavor. The Philippines adopted a similar model in 2009, where they allowed imports to supplement domestic production. Within the first 5 years, the Philippines reached 10% blending and are currently on their way to achieving 20%. By meeting their blend mandate, the Philippines also saw significant growth in their economy, reduction in GHG emissions, and ultimately, their ethanol industry was able to generate enough revenue that allowed them to invest in infrastructure and job creation. So I ask again, why ethanol? Cleaner air. Undisputably, this is one of the greatest benefits of using ethanol into gasoline. It burns cleaner and better at higher blends. And I'd like to leave you with this graph. Many countries are adopting biofuels as an option for renewable energy. Ethanol is widely used in fuel due to its high octane rating and environmentally friendly benefits. This is an opportunity for India to once again lead the way. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alejandra. Before we move on to our next speaker, we will have one more poll. So if all of you can look at your screens right now, this is a significant poll for us because we'd like you to tell us what it is that you would like us to discuss in future webinars. So take a look at your screen. We could consider subjects including almonds and tree nuts, dairy products, fruits and vegetables, grains, pulses, biofuels, spices, cotton. You can, of course, come up with something that's not on this list and write to Keiko ISM and Mandeshi Foundation. We'd be happy to listen to you. Do please click on one of these for now so we have a poll result by the end of the day. Thank you. And with that, we'll now move on to the next speaker for the evening. Very privileged I am to welcome to the webinar Honorable Shri Suresh Prabhuji. Suresh Prabhuji has been India's Sherpa to the G7 and the G20, but interestingly, he is also the architect of India's agriculture export policy, very significant for today's discussions. And he's also been former Commerce Minister, as well as Union Railway Minister, a wealth of experience behind him at the WTO as well. Suresh Prabhuji, we would like to hear from you about your experiences in increasing trade between India and the US, especially in the agricultural sector. Mr. Prabhu, we hope will also speak on India's export policies and also specifically emerging geo-economies and opportunities for trade in agricultural goods. Suresh Prabhuji, over to you.
So thank you very much, and I really appreciate this great event. And I thank you for organizers for bringing together very varied interest groups and focusing on very important aspect of this very great bilateral relationship between US and India, that is on agriculture trade. As we know, US-India have very strong and very robust relationship, but we can never forget the contribution of the United States in India's Green Revolution. In 60s, US, led by Secretary Freeman, actually made sure that we, from becoming an importing country, bringing a lot of food grains from US and other countries, into now in a position which you just mentioned, Kavita, that we are going to be now exporting to other parts of the world agriculture products. I'm very happy that the first ever agriculture export policy of India was unveiled by me, and which talks about taking India's trade in agriculture, global trade in agriculture and exports in agriculture to $100 billion from present $26 billion. So 4 times down. And we are really working, and we have prepared a very good action plan as to which country we can export, from which state of India we can export, what products will be exported, what kind of support we need to provide in terms of infrastructure, what kind of ecosystem we should create so that we conform to the highest standards on health and other considerations in the importing country. So we have really done all of that very effectively, and I'm sure this will herald into a completely different kind of relationship between US and India. As you know, US-India have a very strong relationship in many areas on trade. US is one of the few countries in which India has a trade surplus, and that used to be always a contentious point. But as you know, it's changing very fast, because we'll be buying, as per the Boeing's own estimate, India would need to have another 2,300 new aircrafts, and we could probably buy some of them from the US. We are importing a lot of defense product from US. So and then we started importing oil from United States. And in fact, for the first time, we are seeing that exports from US to India are growing at a rate faster than India's export to US. So it's a very changing dynamics in which we'll see over a period of time a very different kind of trade relationship. But as we know, the trade in agriculture is a very important aspect. As has been pointed out earlier, US, of course, as rightly so, is interested in exporting their agriculture products to India. And India is obviously interested to do the same. But we must understand a very important aspect of this. India's $2.9 trillion GDP, 14% of that comes from agriculture. 60% of India's population depends on agriculture. So just imagine a very small percentage of India's GDP. And when India's per capita income is just about $2,500, and you can imagine that when we have 60% of people of India who are only getting 14% of the total GDP, and their per capita income may be even lower. And in that context, we should ensure that livelihoods of these people will not be affected when we are dealing with import of agriculture products into India. The issue of subsidy is always a very interesting issue to discuss. UNCTAD, United Nations Organization on Trade and Development, has actually come out with several studies, and many other think tanks have done that over a period of time. All these studies point out that despite what has been mentioned, that India's subsidies to agriculture is probably one of the lowest. In fact, some of the cost that a farmer has to bear on his own is probably providing subsidy to the government rather than government providing subsidy to the farmer. That is very true reflection on this. So many other countries in the world give far higher subsidies to their own farmers. In fact, that distorts agriculture trade, because when European Union or United States or even other countries in OECD members, they provide much higher subsidies and support to the farmers, which does not allow the farmers from the developing countries to export the products to the developed countries. So I think we really need to ensure that we work on this. And this is not my own study. It's a study made by several UN organizations, including even WTO had talked about it. And I think we should work on this. Another important aspect of this is bilateral relationship is extremely important. But we should never forget a multilateral dimension to it. The WTO must play a very key role in regulating the global trade. I hope that the new administration, which will be swearing in next week, next Wednesday actually, exactly a week from now, will focus on multilateralism while also developing bilateral relationship. That will ensure that the trade will happen in a very regulated manner. I have dealt with this issue of trade agreement with US, and we were trying to work on this in such a way that we also appreciate the fact that US also has a concern about the farmers. I fully appreciate. But we must always look at where the Indian farmer is and where the US farmer is. And we have to work on that in a very effective way. India is the largest producer of milk in the world. And there is some dairy products which US is very keen to export to India. But we have to ensure that there are certain sensitivities about that in terms of when you feed the animals, whether what kind of animal feed goes into that. Because as you know, the religious sensitivity in India is too high, therefore we have to work on that. But we can always work in a manner that can be mutually beneficial. And I think, as was pointed out by Mr. Goel, I think we should do a sectoral analysis, work on either side, prepare a proper win-win situation, which India and US both can benefit. But agriculture is a very important element of the growing trade between the two countries. And I think if you work on it properly, I'm very sure, and which I have done a lot of work on that, we have possibilities of finding out those niche areas in which both the countries can export in such a manner without affecting each and other country's domestic market. So that is possible. So I really welcome this idea. Ethanol is a very interesting component of that. My colleague and friend Nitin Gadkari ji will be speaking on that, so I don't want to dwell on that issue. But I think there's a tremendous potential and possibilities of working together on many areas on agriculture trade between US and India. As I said, first time we came out with India's agriculture trade with export policy. And I think we should organize some more events like this. And I congratulate Kavita for doing this, is in terms of understanding each other better. And also making sure that trade in agriculture does not affect the livelihoods of farmers in India, which is very important. Because otherwise, it would create even more social issues than what we can address them properly. So I think this is very important, and we should try to move forward, keeping in mind all these important aspects of this very crucial relationship. Thank you very much. I really welcome this initiative of working on these areas. Thank you very much. I really congratulate you.
Suresh Prabhuji, thank you so much. As always, speaking on the dot, finishing just in time, and also making a very important point there about livelihood of farmers in India. I think a subject that is close to our heart for very many reasons. Thank you so much, Suresh Prabhuji. It now gives me great pleasure to invite to address all of us, Honorable Union Minister for Road Transport and Highways and Micro and Small Medium Enterprises in the Government of India, Honorable Shri Nitin Gadkari ji. Quick introduction, although he needs no introduction, one of the senior most cabinet members in the Union government right now, also a former president of the Bharatiya Janata Party, but beyond all that, also a personal expert on various issues that we've been discussing right now, from ethanol to trade, and looking forward to hearing from you, Gadkari ji. We hope that you will be able to touch on the significance of Indo-US trade and hopes the government has for growth in agri-trade between the two countries, and what we can hope from the government in this direction. Mr. Gadkari ji, please. what we can hope from the government in this direction. Mr. Gadkari, please.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. It is really a pleasure and pride for me to interact with you. In Indian situation, our most important problem is surplus of food grain is a big problem in the country. And our MSP is now higher than international price and market price. For taking example for sugar, actually just last 15 days the price is increased, but previously it was 22 rupees per kg from Brazil. And our sugar price, by considering 34 rupees per kg, we are giving minimum per MSP to the sugarcane farmer producer. The problem is that now last year we have given subsidy of 10 rupees per kg for export of sugar, and we spent 6,000 crores on that, and 60 lakh ton of sugar is exported. Now this year we have decided to give subsidy of 6 rupees per kg. So at the same time, regarding the corn, we have a problem that the MSP is of 1700 rupees per quintal, and the market price is 1000 or 1100, 1200 rupees per quintal. Then at the same time, in Indian scenario, we are shortage of edible oils. We are already imported the palm oil from Indonesia, Malaysia, particular region in Southeast Asia, and that is of cost of 90,000 crore. We are importing soybean oil from Argentina, and also the sunflower oil from the different part of the world also we are importing. Now in USA, the GM seed is there for oil seed. In India, we have a lot of discussion, debate and controversies regarding GM seed. The soybean production in USA per acre is 30 quintal. In my own farm, last year I have only 4 quintal. And in Madhya Pradesh and everywhere it is reduced up to 4 to 3 quintal, 5 quintal. So that is one of the reasons that farmers are facing the problem. In our particularly related with the other crops where the rice is also surplus. We are in position to supply rice to the whole world. That was stock we have. So this is the time we have taken decision, because we have always we have the debate on the subject food versus fuel. But I was pursuing from last many years, but this year government has taken a decision to giving permission for making ethanol from corn and from rice and from food grain. And also we are also planning to move towards making ethanol, second generation ethanol from biomass, using bamboo as a crop for that. So in a situation, this is the time for the country to think in a new vision we need to give to agriculture that is important for the country for survival. In our GDP, only 8 to 10% is coming from agriculture, where 60 to 65% population belong to rural agriculture, tribal India. We have 115 aspired districts where GDP growth is very negligible, and that is one of the reasons that we are not getting good GDP. Our manufacturing sector is given 22-24% contributes for GDP, and service sector is 52 to 54%. Our agriculture export is 10%. Actually, we have got huge strength for fruits, vegetables, and we need to change our crop pattern. First of all, we need to resolve the problem related with Indian economic and agriculture situation, where we need to accept the policy of diversification of agriculture towards energy and power sector. So we have import of
we are 8 lakh crore we are spending for import of crude oil. And for diesel and petrol, we are facing the crucial problem for air pollution. So now in Indian situation from last 12 to 13 years, I am constantly pursuing the ethanol. And now it is a good position that everyone is accepted, but we are late. In American scenario, they have got lot of ethanol available from corn and their rates are very less. Actually, they are ready to export ethanol from USA to India. In a situation where already we are now trying to increase the productivity in ethanol, and as a transport minister, I pursued the thing, and now the TVS, the motorcycle manufacturer, and Bajaj, both are launched their motorcycle and scooter on 100% bioethanol. In USA, Brazil and Canada, they have flex engines. So there is a choice by which they can convert. Consumer can take either petrol or ethanol 100%. So I am constantly pursuing to automobile industry that you should have this. There is a small change, not a big cost difference is there. Only the one filter from Bosch, they have to add in it, by which we can use this flex engine and dual fuel. And this is very important for Indian economy, that we need to find out solution for imports. And pollution is also a big concern. We have also one of the leading industry, Praj in Pune. We have successfully implemented making bio-aviation fuel from ethanol. In the Air Force, our fighter jet and helicopter, already they use this aviation fuel and they certify, there is no problem. So for aviation fuel, so we can use ethanol. And where we are going, the policy is to import substitute cost-effective, pollution-free and indigenous. One of the sector where we can create cooperation between India and USA, that is processing of ethanol. Now in India, we have successfully completed a trial in textile and synthetic fiber industry, where they are using ethanol as a chemical for using in place of petroleum-based chemical. They are successfully implemented using ethanol, agro-based bioethanol. So we need to accept the new technology, new innovations and new research related with ethanol, where there will be a good combination, where there will be a win-win situation for USA and India. We need to increase the productivity. Either it is oilseed like soybean and other crops, even in corn, and even for fruits and vegetables, we can make joint venture with the American companies by which we can increase the productivity. Where we need to, there is a huge potential is available. Regarding fertilizer also, we are importing urea. Now just I am talking about the organic carbon in the soil. And it is very important, when there is organic carbon up to 0.25%, we get 25 to 30 ton of sugar cane. But if the organic carbon is 0.80, then we will get the productivity of 100 ton sugar cane per acre. So regarding this soil health and using of different type of fertilizer, insecticides, we need to more concentrate on organic farming also, where we can use the technical experiences, successful stories, research and innovations which already the USA in agriculture sector they are using. And this is very important for the country. At the same time, we now concentrating on how to increase the productivity of particularly CNG. Now in Indian situation, we are successfully making CNG from biomass. In Delhi pollution, we have a big problem because the majority of the farmers, there is a burning of parali, popularly known as parali, it is rice straw. And because of that burning, we are facing air pollution problem. In particularly in Delhi, we are facing lot of problem. Now the technology is available that 5 ton of Parli, that is rice straw, is giving 1 ton of bio-CNG. We can make bio-CNG from any type of biomass. And also, I was minister for Ganga, Namami Ganga. So I got offered to make at least 150 biodigester in the country. From that biodigester in my own city in Nagpur, we are selling our sewage water to government of Maharashtra for power generation, and we are getting royalty of 325 crore per year. Now we are having an experiment that convert to getting from that water in biodigester. We will use biomass, organic waste in it, and also from the water we will get bio-CNG. By bifurcate methane, we will get methane, and bifurcate methane from CO2 we will get bio-CNG. And that is also can be a import substitute, cost effective and pollution free fuel. I just doing a lot of experiment as a passion. I am not a businessman or industrialist. I have tractor, my own tractor, 15-year-old tractor from Mahindra. We have converted on bio-CNG. In my own area, I have 3 sugar factories, and we are making 18 ton of bio-CNG per day. So the tractor is successfully, we have now there is in Delhi, and after 15 days we are going to launch this system, and it is going to save 1 lakh rupees per year of the farmer by using CNG, bio-CNG in tractor. And this bio-CNG we are getting from biomass. So where actually reducing the expenditure cost is very important for the farmer. We need to increase productivity, and we need to reduce the expenditure cost and fertilizer, insecticides, and we have to make value addition. Now regarding the fruits, vegetables, lot of things, we don't have storage capacity. Here also we can make cooperation with the USA, because in the country we need pre-cooling plant, cold storage, IQF, different type of different technology, food preservation, processing, value addition, agro processing, and there is a huge potential is available. And one side we will increase the production, and other side we can make the processing industries, we can increase the export, we can make easily availability of all food processing value added products in the whole world with a very, very reasonable cost, low cost. And for that reason, for technology, there is a upgradation of the technology. We can accept new innovations, research and other things. I always talking to the people that the innovation, entrepreneurship, science, technology, research, skilled and successful practices, we name it as a knowledge, and conversion of knowledge into wealth is the future. Particularly in agriculture. Regarding agro-processing industries, value addition, we need good technology, successful experiments, we need to understand from the USA. The other important sector is we can make the blue economy of 5 lakh crores. Presently, our fishermen boats are going up to 8 to 10 nautical mile. When I was fishing minister, we have a sea front available up to more than 110 nautical mile. But it is difficult for fishermen to go more than 8 to 10 nautical mile. It is very difficult. So in Cochin shipyard, we have invented a trawler which can go up to 100 nautical mile, and by which we can increase the production of fish by 5 to 6 times more. There is a huge potential for fish processing industries and packaging. At the same time, in sweet water also, there are a lot of popular fish which are available. We can use the different type of technology and increase the productivity, and there will be a huge volume which is available in fishing for export, and where we can take the cooperation of the country like USA for that. The other important sector is jute, coir, bamboo, honey. Everywhere there is a huge potential. As a MSME minister, we have availability of high altitude honey. Now the Amazon has exported our MSME products of 70,000 crore. The high altitude honey's cost on Amazon site is 6,000 rupees per kg. And in Khadi Gramodyog, we have got different type of honeys available of best quality. There's a lot of debate is going on in the country about the honey of different companies. But our honey is proved to be mostly best, good quality and without any adulteration and passing all standards or world standards in our honey. So honey can be a good example where it can be 100% we can export to the whole world. The third important thing is where I feel that it's with bamboo. Now we have taken a lot of decisions regarding import of agarbattis and agarbatti sticks. Now the production in agarbatti sticks is increased by 20 times more in India. So we have already taken a lot of decisions related to the imports of agarbattis. Now India, we are encouraging our agriculture people for starting this industry. One of the important things which I will request you, there are some interesting things. I don't know the details about it, but in USA there is a veg mutton and veg chicken. We have a lot of availability of this soybean cake contains 49% protein. And in USA they are successfully making the veg chicken and veg mutton from that. Even they can add 30% of veg chicken and veg mutton in original chicken and mutton. There is a huge potential in India because the soybean cake is available, by which we can make the collaboration with American companies. If we can make availability of veg chicken and veg mutton, there is a huge potential for that. It contains 49% protein, which is going to resolve the problem of malnutrition in the tribal area. Our mutton and chicken price is more than 600 rupees per kg. And this veg chicken and veg mutton will get 200 rupees per kg. So it can also value added product for the farmer. So even the rice bran oil is also is a good potential in India. We are already exporting our basmati rice to the whole world. It's a success story. And even the low quality rice, we are sending to African countries also. There is a huge market is available. We have to make a lot of addition in sugar. I am giving you my example. We are making detergent from sugar. And we are exporting all this detergent to the Russia, to the Dubai, and now we are now trying to export all over the world. And it is eco-friendly, cost-effective, and it is good. I will give the sample. We are making laundry detergent, making detergent in machine and other type of detergent. And it's a very, very good detergent available. The cost is less than the detergent available in the market. So we need to have to plan and have to accept the vision that how we can make value addition in agriculture. What are the, actually for Atmanirbhar Bharat, our vision is to increase our export and reduce our import. For that reason, we need to have upgradation of technology. We should have investment. Indian MSMEs are doing excellent jobs. The returns on investment in India is very, very attractive. I know that what is the return available in USA, all in the whole world. In my NHI, National Highway Authority, I am making roads. In last 5 years, when I was Minister in Shipping and Roads and Ports, we have awarded works contracts more than 17 lakh crores. And for this year, we are making the roads of 5 lakh crores, we are going to give a contract. My total income in NHI is 34,000 crore per year up to end of this year. And next 5 years, we are now starting the toll system on GPS. And our estimate is to get it, we will get the total income of 1,34,000 crore per year. So we can offer you good returns to insurance fund, pension funds and other things. Now in MSME, and particularly the agro MSME also, a lot of MSME is doing excellent job. So on MSME exchange, we are now giving the fund of 50,000 crore for good MSME, those who have good track record with GST, income tax and bank turnover. We are giving them 15% equity, what they are going to raise from the market, from the government side, from my ministry. And there is a huge potential that if you can invest in it, you will get very, very good returns. Some of the MSMEs are doing excellent jobs. They have good export turnover. And it is 100% ready giving you good returns. Now 100% FDI is allowed in infrastructure, in defense, everywhere. Now amphibious seaplane story I am telling you. Now we have completed the waterways in Ganga. We are completed waterways in Brahmaputra. And now we have the sea front is available all over, the big sea front is available. We have big dams, lakes, and we can start the transport on seaplane, amphibious seaplane, where it can, we land on land at the same time on the water. The American companies have got the technology. Even the Canadian company, they have got the technology. It is the time that just I have a discussion with one of the private owner of the airlines. He was telling me he is going to purchase 100 plane. But as far as my knowledge, when I was minister, there is a provision, there is a potential of 10,000 seaplane in the country. We can make everywhere water port, river port, sea port, by which the transport can be easily available. So my suggestion is, we need to think on the line that what are the need of India and what are the need of USA. What are the strength of India, what are the strength of USA. How it can be possible, or that is a win-win situation for both the countries. So my feeling is, now for cotton, India has got a huge production of cotton. But now we are working on sericulture, silk. Lot of Chinese products are now exported to USA. But we can give the all type of good quality, where we can make the fabric from bamboo, from jute, from coir, from silk and from cotton. And different type of mixing and making the product, we can make good products. We have handloom and handicrafts available in the rural agriculture and tribal India. And that's why we can make it that. The Madhubani painting, the shoes are available from my Khadi Gramodyog. Yesterday we have launched a paint. This is the paint. I can show you. Please show this. Hey, this side, the paint is, we are making it from cow dung. And this is of international standard paint. बरोबर दाखवते, वरती करते हैं. हे दाखव, वरती कर. And this paint is white paint. This is for this side. This is one that khadi, that is Prakrutik paint. We name it as Prakrutik paint. And it is in the market, whatever the paints of the reputed company available, all standards are completed. All the laboratory tests are there. Now we are making ISI for that. But we are selling this paint with the half of the price. The quality is better. So we can start 1,000 of this paint factory in the country, and we can give 5 rupees per kg rate to cow dung. No problem. So this type of new innovation, new technology for biofuels, for bamboo, for honey, for fishing, and from different type of Ayurvedic products, there is a huge demand. But accepting the new technology, innovation and research in the whole world, we can upgrade the technology. We can make a lot of logistic parts we want to make it. We need to use different type of new technology for big storage capacity. We need to increase pre-cooling plant, cold storage. We need good technology for storage system. So there is a huge potential available where USA company can contribute for that. I feel that lot of subject is very big, and I feel that it is really a good opportunity for both the countries in a win-win situation. I definitely going to give my special thanks to organizer, but we need to find out exactly what are the requirements of USA, what are the requirements of India, what India is importing, what India can export, what technology they have, how we can make use of the technology in India, how we can make the use of investment in agriculture sector from the USA, where they will get good returns and we will get the low cost capital. In the different model, the people like you, we need to have a research study on it. And it is very important that India is going to become a largest economy. As an automobile industry, I am a minister for transport. Within 5 years, our plan is to make our all automobile on ethanol, methanol, biodiesel, bio-CNG, electric and hydrogen fuel cell. And we are now in waiting for scrapping policy. Already I recommended to the cabinet. And I am confident that after that, within 5 years, India is going to become a #1 manufacturing automobile hub of the world. Now we have the size of industry is 4,50,000 crore, and where is 1,45,000 crore export is there. All reputed brands in the whole world, they are all now available in India. Now today the Tesla has declared they are starting their office in Bangalore. So people are waiting for Tesla. We can make tractor on bio-CNG. As a minister, I decided to make construction equipment machinery either on LNG or CNG. LNG is the fuel for the future. USA got a lot of things. We can make methanol now, and the methanol economy is a big size available in USA. We have coal is available, we can make methanol from that, and also we can make syngas from that. We have got a lot of CO2 creating problem for the country. We can make some addition into CO2 and we can make the use value added product from that. So somewhere I feel that somewhere the people who are expert like you, who can work on the subject that which are the plus and minus for both the countries, which are the potentials for both the countries, which are the needs of both the countries, which are the technology which we can be useful for both the countries, raw material which are useful, and on the basis of that with the cooperation, coordination, and also we need a effective communication. People like you who can work for that, we can make a win-win situation for both the country. I really happy that you are doing excellent job. We are also want to make our Indian economy waste to wealth, where we want to make this economy of 5 lakh crores and making organic manual from the organic waste. So we can make CNG from organic waste. Different type of technologies are available in the whole world, and America has got a lot of technology. So there is a huge potential for that. I feel that it is the time for both the country, by using the strength of both the country, 100% we can make a success story. For Atmanirbhar Bharat, we are always open. We are open for cooperation and open for investment, open for technology. As a MSME ministry, I want to develop more agro MSME. Our turnover of village industry is 80,000 crore, and my vision is to make it 5 lakh crore. So I always having a highest priority for rural, agriculture, tribal, and the forest area, and 115 aspirant districts where the people are socially, economically, educationally backward. But the raw material, the forest raw material is available, where we need your technology, your assistance for success stories, where we can make use of our raw material and we can make the success story. We are now creating more plantation of bamboos. We can make different type of flowers. So my suggestion is 100%, this is really a good initiative taken by the organizer. We need to go into the details about from the Commerce Ministry, take the inputs and outputs for that, what are the export and imports, then find out what type of technology we can accept it. And it is even investment also in agriculture sector, there is a huge potential is available. So 100% for your good initiative. I am giving my special thanks to you, and also with the all respectable speaker, my dear friend Mr. Suresh Prabhu, and all who are now listening to all this webinar in USA also. My all best wishes for the new year to all of them, and also organizer, she is from Maharashtra. तुम्ही जे प्रयत्न करता आहात त्याला माझ्या खूप खूप शुभेच्छा. जय महाराष्ट्र. नमस्कार.
Put out the poll results on social media and on your emails. You can watch out for those. There will be more webinars coming up on the subjects that we have discussed today, on several of the actionable points that Honorable Minister Shri Gadkari ji and Suresh Prabhu ji have raised so poignantly right now. Also, a special thank you to Pasha Patel ji for farmer leader and former chairperson of the Commission of Agricultural Prices. And of course, Thank you to the movers and shakers of today's event. Thank you, Mr. Goel, for your participation and for your advice and help. Thank you, Alejandra. Thank you, Craig. And of course, a big thank you to Chetna, and thank you, Brian, for making this happen today. Look forward to your participation in future webinars.
Just a minute. अधिकारी थे एग्रीकल्चर में, उन्होंने बहुत अच्छा काम किया है। उनको आप आपके ग्रुप में ऐड करिए। ही कैन कंट्रीब्यूट एंड फ्रॉम हिज एक्सपीरियंस ही कैन गिव यू गुड सजेशन। बहुत दिनों के बाद मैं उनको मिला हूं। नमस्कार।
थँक यू सर, थँक यू।
ऑलरेडी आहे मेंटर, गडकरी साहेब ते आमचे मेंटर आहेत ऑलरेडी। मानदेशी किसान प्रोड्युसर कंपनी, आमची जी महिला कंपनी आहे त्याला नेहमी सल्ला देत असतात।
थँक यू, थँक यू, थँक यू।
Okay, thank you everyone, and look forward to meeting you again very soon at the next webinar. Do watch out on social media for the results of the poll and for announcements about the subsequent webinars that are coming up. Thank you very much. Have a very, very good day. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.